International Trade Focus is brought to you by GOIL and Agricultural Development Bank.
Coming up on International Trade Focus, we'll be bringing you highlights of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues 2024. And later, UNCTAD raises alarm on global trade disruptions on the Red Sea, Black Sea, and Panama Canal.
Hi there, my name is Anastio and this is International Trade Focus. Now on this week's episode, I'm here to take you through the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, an exciting event where big ideas meet big actions to create a better tomorrow for our continent. This year, we are diving into the powerful theme of delivering prosperity in Africa, produce, add value and trade. Now this is all about growing what we have, making it even better and sharing it with the world. We're looking at how we can turn our local treasures into global successes and make sure that everyone benefits. So absolutely stay tuned as we bring you all the highlights and inspiring moments from the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. It's going to be an incredible journey through the ideas and initiatives shaping Africa's path to prosperity. You wouldn't want to miss this. International Trade Focus is brought to you by GOIL Good Energy, ADB, Truly, Agric and more, Public Elegance and Pediasi Valley Resorts.
Here's innovation from GOIL that takes you further. New GOIL Super Synthetic 5W20 and 5W30 lubes have been expertly crafted with the latest in liquid engineering technology, highly advanced for modern engines, prolongs oil change intervals, save you fuel, clean, protect and enhance engine performance. The way engines work has become complex and GOIL has innovated to stay ahead with expertly crafted lubricants that work excellently with all petrol and diesel engines of today. New GOIL Super Synthetic 5W20 and 5W30 lubes. Innovation that takes you further. GOIL. Good energy.
Are you an importer or exporter? Do you need quick financing at the best rate on the market? ADB has good news for you. Walk into any agricultural development bank location nationwide for that solution to all your trade financing needs. ADB offers you pre-financing of exports and imports, post-shipment credit facilities, bank guarantees, the issuance and acceptance of letters of credit, documentary bills for collection, outward documentary collection. Enjoy free advisory services from our well-trained, dedicated trade officers. Exporters of agricultural products are encouraged to take advantage of this great service. For further enquiries, call us on 0302 210 210. ADB, making trade finance easy. ADB, Truly Agric and more.
What is all this? Why can't we ever seem to get this right? Our meetings are always chaotic, and that's why we are never able to plan efficiently. I have to do something now.
Yes, don't we all love solutions? The Pediasi Valley Resort welcomes you to the stunning surrounds of the Eastern Highlands of Ghana for your next business meeting, seminar, retreat, or conference.
All their venues are equipped with the latest audiovisual technology as well as their very able conference and banqueting staff. At Pediasi Valley Resort, you will work in peace and relaxation, coupled with scenes and adventures at the Bree Botanical Gardens, the Art Village, and many more. If you find yourself in my situation, remember, Pediasi Valley Resort is your #1 solution. Pediasi Valley Resort. Live life.
Now this week's episode features highlights of the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. This year's event was under the theme, Delivering Prosperity in Africa, Produce, Add Value and Trade. Now this focuses on elevating our local treasures to global successes, ensuring that there's widespread benefits. Stay tuned for all the highlights and inspiring moments from this exciting event.
Looking at the impressive list of African personalities who have come here to the President's official retreat in the serene hills of Aburi, I'm mightily encouraged that Africa now has a private sector that is ready, deliberate, and eager to see that the 60-year-old dream of a united Africa manifests. The difference, perhaps, between then and today is that the focus is on an area where can there be no debate: economic integration. How we facilitate the free movement of people, goods, and services across this vast and resourceful mass, Africa, is what we must devote our energies to. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know that Africa is blessed. Africa is not a poor continent. In fact, she's too rich to be poor. Our continent has every natural resource imaginable: oil, gas, minerals, and an abundance of sunlight. We have some 65% of all arable land available to feed 9 billion people globally by 2050. And our continent is home to the most youthful population in the world. We have everything we need to transform Africa into a global powerhouse of the future. We must therefore remind ourselves consistently of the prospects she has, and our individual and collective responsibility to turn prospects into productivity that can generate prosperity for our peoples. I'm excited and proud that once again I've had the privilege to host the Africa Prosperity Dialogues, an excellent initiative aimed at facilitating understanding, dialogue, and commitment to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area initiative. I congratulate the organizers, the Africa Prosperity Network and its founder, for their vision and their ability to attract this formidable lineup of strategic partners. Should leave no one in doubt that this is a project that requires all the support we can muster. What the Africa Prosperity Dialogues have provided is a unique platform dedicated to mobilizing Africa's energetic private sector to own and drive the fulfillment of the promises that the AFCFTA presents. The theme for this year's dialogues speak directly to what we have to do if we're to make the AFCFTA meaningful. Without the capacity to industrialize, add value to our raw materials, and invest to build the social, digital, economic, and physical infrastructure that will connect our peoples and businesses to customers across Africa, intra-Africa trade will remain at the negligible lows that it has always been. Indeed, Africa accounts for only 3% of global trade, and intra-Africa trade is one of the lowest of any region globally. This is largely due to the colonial economic model, characterized by small individual economies, fragmented and disconnected regional markets, over reliance on the export of primary commodities, and the presence of low productive capacities, which have been well in existence for over a century. These dialogues have to find ways to realize the commitments that have been made loudly and clearly for African governments to deepen their resolve in achieving the decisions reached in the compact. It must be representative of all sectors needed to carry Africa and ensure that the growth targets that are attained are sustainable, irrespective of future global challenges. These dialogues have to examine critically the responsibilities and expectations of the private sector and demand same of the public sector, and assess how both can work as partners to achieve the Africa we want. We must strengthen our resolve to work hand in hand with our governments in free and fair democratic systems of governance that promote safe and sound legal and institutional frameworks. Let us work to get the buy-in of the small trader, builder, farmer, and seamstress, and make them believe that having a single market can benefit them as well. As we delve into delivering prosperity in Africa, produce, add value, trade, the theme of this year's dialogues, let us embark on a journey that goes beyond rhetoric, transcending dialogue into actionable plans for transformative change. I know you came here not just to talk, but to spark action. I also know that for many of you, you had to acquire a visa to come to this event, even though special arrangements for this conference reduced the visa acquisition fee by 50%, and you were thus able to receive your visa on arrival. The government of Ghana is committed to ensuring visa-free for all Africans.
Yet again today, and the AFCFTA Secretariat is extremely proud, or very proud to partner with the Africa Prosperity Network and the presidency of Ghana to ensure that as Africans, we begin the process of telling our own story, narrating our own challenges which I believe are actually opportunities. The theme for this year could not be more appropriate: delivering prosperity in Africa, production, add value, and trade. And of course, the African Continental Free Trade Area is precisely the instrument to deliver upon this promise of an Africa that produces what it consumes. Over the last 3.5 years that the AFCFTA Secretariat has been in Ghana, we have recorded tremendous success in ensuring that the vision of our founding fathers does indeed become a reality. Trade under the AFCFTA has begun. We have a program that we initiated last year, which is designed and intended to see the realization of the trade that all of us want to see on the African continent. As we speak, we have developed the AFCFTA tariff book, which enables the private sector and economic operators across the African continent to determine with certainty the tariffs that apply to the products that they want to export. We also have the Rules of Origin Manual. For the very first time, as the African continent, we are able to apply rules of origin that are harmonized, that enable an exporter from Kenya to export to Malawi with a great deal of certainty about the market that they are exporting to. And that is why we have developed a private sector strategy, identifying sectors such as agriculture, the automotive sector, pharmaceuticals, transport and logistics, which combined create and establish a market of $130 billion for investing in the value chains that the Vice President of the African Development Bank alluded to earlier. We recognize, of course, that many challenges remain. That is why the partnerships that we have developed with the Africa Business Council, with the African Development Bank, with Afrexim Bank, to ensure that we mobilize the necessary resources so that this dream does indeed become a reality. Last year, as you may be aware, we signed an MOU with the United Bank of Africa, UBA, where they committed to mobilize up to $7 billion to invest in private sector, particularly small medium enterprises, to advance these very objectives of the AFCFTA of enabling small medium enterprises, the processing of and value addition of goods that are produced in Africa. Much needs to be done. We have, however, taken the very concrete steps of creating a single market consistent with the vision of our founding mothers and fathers as far back as May 1963 in the historic city of Addis Ababa, where they expressed a desire that one day the African continent must be a single market, must trade using local currency, must have a single currency, and we have taken concrete steps towards that particular vision. We have established protocols, such as a protocol on investment, to protect not primarily foreign investors, but to protect African investors. We have established an intellectual property rights regime, a competition policy, and soon we will conclude protocols on women and youth in trade, very critical for inclusion. And we will also conclude a protocol on digital trade later this month. The protocol on digital trade positions us to harness the benefits of Africa's digital economy, to ensure inclusion, particularly inclusion of young Africans who are at the cutting edge of digital innovation and who require the regulatory support for them to thrive in Africa's digital market.
Without hesitation, I'm going to go around. I'll remind you that I'm a diplomat by accident. And so if I interrupt you and stop you, please use your 3 to 4 minutes wisely. I'm going to go around first and let you lay out your stalls as speakers here on what you see as the sort of opportunities and challenges for value addition. And I think Bridget has already set out that times 10 value of 50 billion to 500 billion. But where do you see this? I'm building from last year, what's already happening? Because I think that's the inspiration that everybody needs in the room. What's really happening? And then I'll come back to ask some follow-on questions and open the floor.
What do we do differently to add value? I think that one of the most important things as Africans that we should think of doing is giving the world what is unique from us. In terms of value addition, we shouldn't just give what the world already has, and I'll give some practical examples. I was at dinner the other day in Nigeria about 2-3 months ago, and the chef, it was a private dinner, and the chef served a delicious drink called cocoa juice. I'd never had it before. It was from Ghana. Imagine if cocoa juice is globally available on every table, just the same way it's orange juice or apple juice. Yes, we grow oranges in Nigeria, we grow oranges everywhere, but Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, we lead the world in cocoa. So imagine the value addition with creativity, with innovation. I'll go on to talk about a few others. Cassava chips, I know that that's exported from Nigeria to the Netherlands. There are other drinks like zobo, we call it zobo in Nigeria, it's hibiscus juice. And I also know that we have creative flavors of chocolates. I've had chocolates from Ghana that had plantain chips in it that has the effect of like a Rice Krispie. So the point is giving the world what is unique to Nigeria. How do we do that? As a government person who works on enabling business environment, I would say immediately that these companies need the space to thrive. What African businesses need are less regulations or adequate regulations and policies that enable them to multiply, to flourish, to collaborate, to work together. We shouldn't be afraid of inputs. Importing is not a bad thing if you're importing inputs and making sure that those inputs are leading to productivity that you can export for value addition. The most important thing is making sure that there's enablement with infrastructure, both hard and soft infrastructure, the people issues being addressed. But I think that most importantly, we should leverage our creativity.
I'm going to speak about the financing of, I'm coming at this from a financing angle. But I think in terms of what we need to do differently, we need to actualize the regional approach to solving the world's problems today from Africa, for Africa, and for the world. So when I look at Ghana and I see the resources that Ghana has, there's some priorities that the country has in terms of being a regional hub for recycling, for really fueling the circular economy. A regional hub so a regional hub also for energy in terms of EV solar charging. There's no reason why Ghana cannot, given the resources it has, like lithium, like the secure and more user-friendly environment for attracting foreign investment for projects and for manufacturing. There's no reason why that shouldn't be a priority to have solar-charged EV stations manufactured out of Ghana. There's agriculture as well. There's an amazing amount of research that's being done for agriculture in Ghana that needs to be actualized. So how do we do that? And so we talk about this quite a bit as we go around the different countries and conferences. But let's actualize that. Let's look at how we can bring the cost of borrow down by focusing on projects. So if we look at the fiscal challenges that Ghana has now, I think we allow the world to becloud us too much and therefore take away from the plentiful benefits that Ghana does have and that Africa does have. We need data. And part of what we need for data, we talk about the critical resources that we have in the continent today and the critical minerals that we have. In reality, we don't know how much we have in the different countries. We certainly don't know the value of them. We need to get to a point where, for example, instead of worrying about raising US dollars and adding that to debt, is there some exchange that we could be doing in Ghana, in other countries, where we're saying, here is, in Ghana, we do gold exchanges for dollar today. But what about lithium exchange for gold, for dollars, or even for other currencies, and going back to the principles of bartering and using those principles to find sources of financing. I'd say one last thing at this stage of my submission. We also need to look more in the global south and work with countries that actually need what we have. So in the global south, Brazil, India, China, and also countries like the Middle East are more interested in what we have to offer on terms that work for us financially and otherwise. And we should be looking there and doing deals there, project-based, led by the private sector, on terms that work for us.
Please don't ever underestimate the power of what you're doing. Sometimes we think, well, there's a conference culture, we're talking to the converted, but there's a lot of power in that, because what we need is an echo chamber to be created, where we are developing these ideas, they get repeated over and over until it becomes a consensus around an advocacy agenda. And that agenda then becomes transformative action. Now, I've had briefly 2 examples just to share because I felt like I should start off with some encouragement. That when we started AGOA, there was really only 5 of us in the US. And we have this saying in our community that we were just sick and tired of being sick and tired of the global trading system, Africa being marginalized. At the time, I was a US diplomat living in Cote d'Ivoire, and I got a request because it was around 1993, and my request was to convince the Ivorian government to join the WTO. And they rightfully had issues with this. What are we getting from global trade? And then I just decided that I would return to Washington, work for my mentor in the Congress, and work with others, 5, to draft a new law. And there were 5 on the African side. And we were told dead on arrival. I don't think there was a labor union that didn't fight us. The NGOs thought we were coming after the aid towards Africa, which I believe is not really hitting the ground in Africa, but that's another speech. We were fought for 5 years, but we had meetings like this, and we had resolve, and we repeated the same thing, and it became a movement. So I want to say that my hope is that the African Prosperity Network will become a movement of ideas, of transformative ideas.
Your Excellencies have been talking about the private sector. So Africa Business Council is the voice of the private sector. It is established by the heads of states to be your council, representing the voice of the African private sector, including SMEs, women and youth. So how do we make business really different? And Your Excellency, President Nana, you mentioned that we have 65% of the arable land within Africa, but we still import $50 billion per year food from outside the continent. So how can we really make this formula? 2030, we will need 200 million batteries, vehicles, electrical vehicles. Where are we going to manufacture our lithium batteries? Are we going to export lithium to China to be done there and then imported, or we invest on the continent to add value to our products on the continent? So our founding vision of the Africa Business Council is a competitive, borderless, innovative Africa for trade, investment, and industrialization. So the issue of private sector strengthening, including SMEs, women and youth, is really about building the capacity of our African people, our African private sector. How do we build the capacity? By education, by training, by information. The second pillar, which is about policy advocacy. Your Excellency, President Nana, you are here supporting the Africa Prosperity Dialogue. Our prosperity will only come from really focusing on empowering the private sector by policies. And that one of the recommendations we took during the African Union Private Sector Summit, around the summit, was to have at least 40% of all government procurement goes to African private sector, including SMEs, women and youth. We have to have a mapping exercise of what's existing on the continent, what are we producing, how we strengthen the capacity of the private sector to produce and use what we are having. Again, so we need incentives for investment of African private sector. We need to lower the corporate taxes in order to promote our African private sector. We need a whole internal reforms. We need financial inclusion, access to credit for our African private sector. But we're doing all this to reach to the third pillar, which is product development. A made in Africa product which is competitive, value added, standardized, quality, and for this we need to have industrial parks, we need to have business incubators, we need to have a real product development, packaging. So if we're talking about ACFTA and one single market of 1.3 billion people, what should this 1.3 billion people do? How can, for instance, in Africa, if we have as the shea butter in West Africa, it goes to big cosmetic companies outside the continent to be value added. If we have, for instance, medical consumer supply, in Egypt, for instance, we have 400 industries of medical consumer supplies, yet we still import from India and China. What really matters is that we all work together, coordinated.
You are watching International Trade Focus. Stay tuned for some more highlights on the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. Don't go away.
What is all this? Why can't we ever seem to get this right? Our meetings are always chaotic, and that's why we are never able to plan efficiently. I have to do something now.
Yes, don't we all love solutions? Tibiasi Valley Resort welcomes you to the stunning surrounds of the Eastern Highlands of Ghana for your next business meeting, seminar, retreat, or conference.
All their venues are equipped with the latest audiovisual technology as well as their very able conference and banqueting staff. At Tibiasi Valley Resort, you will work in peace and relaxation, coupled with scenes and adventures at the Bree Botanical Gardens, the Art Village, and many more. If you find yourself in my situation, remember, Tibiasi Valley Resort is your #1 solution. Tibiasi Valley Resort. Live life.
Resource-rich, but resourceful poor. And I guess one of the jinx in trying to bridge that gulf is the subject of trade. And for me, I'm not just looking at it from the point of just value addition, but also qualifying it with distinctive value addition. Sitting here, I have had a benefit of selling commodities. I've had a benefit of selling brands, and today I am selling technology. And I know the difference between commodity, what a brand is, and what technology difference it can bring. The way we trade today is completely different from the way we used to trade 20 years, 30 years ago. But unfortunately, it appears we in Africa are not recognizing some of the shifts. And I'll just give a few examples. If you trace the history of trade, whether it's the mass production era, or it's the Industrial Revolution, or even the emergence of technology, they've all been born out of crisis. And with the COVID situation that we have today, we are all beginning to see some of the shifts also that we need to pay attention to. Today, we also have geopolitical tensions that also is redefining trade. And we in Africa have to reposition ourselves to be able to take advantage of the situation, be it in sustainability, which is a mega trend, or in geopolitical shifts that we are seeing. We seem to be well positioned, very proximate to Europe, but are we taking advantage of our location and position? Sustainability has become a major topic, and it's a high trillion business. And we in Africa seem to be playing with the narrative of the West. And just take for instance, If there is a case for relocation of factories from the West to Africa, that case is also in sustainability. Why would we carry cocoa from here with the moisture, with the waste, all the way to Switzerland for it to be processed and then we bring it back? Who is tracking the net zero effect of that logistics and the supply chain? So there is a mega case for relocation of industries close to where the raw materials are. And I think it's one of the things that we need to do, and we need to rethink even the way we embrace subjects like climate change, sustainability, and what it means for Africa. There is a subject of carbon trading. And carbon trading, where is the carbon residing? The bulk of it in Africa. And what place is Africa taking to ensure that 20, 30 years from now, we will lead the world in carbon trading? Take e-commerce as an example. It's showing us that when it comes to technology, there are no barriers. You sit in Ghana, you order goods, it comes. If GRA is lucky, it will be able to trace value. But for 99% of the time, they are not able to trace value. So it is also about time, once again, with the enablement of technology, for us to allow the issue of sovereignty that is leading to closed borders to give way. And I'm happy that our president is talking about a time in his era during which no one will require a visa to come to Ghana. And this is something that we should be doing 20 years ago. And it should not just be Ghana, it should be everywhere. So taking advantage of fintech for payments across borders. Why is it that today you will live in Ghana, you cannot transfer money to Nigeria, or you cannot receive money from Nigeria? Everybody says you can bring money, but you can't take out money. The tyranny of sovereignty must give way, and we must break the borders for Africa trade to lift. Thank you very much.
I came back from the UK in 1997 and started a small rental company. I was expecting to run a business that could earn me possibly $50,000 a month, but looking in here, I saw the opportunities in Ghana and Africa. I took advantage of it, and the business grew bigger than me. What I meant was that a lot of the things that we needed to help our people with were constrained with finance to be able to help the citizenry. But what happened then was that a few banks saw the advantage of helping a local company and helped us from one equipment to equipment, and we became bigger. We then scouted into Africa and saw the advantages of the minerals that we had, but we had a missing link where we couldn't put together. In Ghana, we had a lot of gold, bauxite. In Liberia, we had a lot of iron ore. In Guinea, we had bauxite and iron ore. So we took advantage of that and started doing the exploration to see what benefits we could harness. In doing that, we found out that Africa was sitting on billions of dollars and didn't know where its direction was. So what then we did, we then worked backwards to see the traders who were trading our commodities, and we contacted them. Now, unfortunately, there's been a missing link between our countries where, unfortunately, our presidents are not talking to each other to see how they could get the benefits from themselves. So fortunately, the Liberian president-elect, Sirleaf Johnson, told us she wanted us to help her start this first mine that Mittal had started. We went in there. It was a 33 million ton mine over 30 months. Fortunately, we took skill from Ghana, took to Liberia, brought Liberia unskilled after 20 years of civil war, brought them to Ghana, trained them, took them back again. We worked there 3 years. We handed over to the Liberians, and they've done very, very well. I had the opportunity in Liberia to speak to my president, and I told him that there's a lot of opportunities in Ghana that could help our country. In Ghana, our city is struggling. It's just because whatever we export, 100% doesn't come in. So what I was actually proposing to say is that, and I proposed to the president, and he gave me audience and even invited me to come, which I'm going to follow up after this event, is that if you know about the volumes of gold we produce, and we don't hold that in our vaults to also say it could help our currency. If we do that, I'm sure that alone would not benefit Ghana, but it would benefit the sub-region. So what I'll propose is that let's look within and see the talents we have. A small example of one of the stories that one of the big copper mines started in Zambia. They came in here, took 28 Ghanaians, started an investment of 480 million and paid it off in 18 months. I was just saying to those same Ghanaians who went out there and said, if we let them stay here and do the same, Ghana would benefit. So I believe that if we harness the information we have in the sub-region and work with ourselves, this could be the best region that everybody would be running to. I know COVID was an issue, but we should have used COVID to correct our mistakes, to be able to work in here. A few people didn't move, but the countries didn't stop. If we can go back to that era and see how things worked in that era, I think that we would know that most of the benefits we want is here and we can do it together.
I think one of the big problems that we have on the continent is trust for mutuality. Trust for mutuality. And because of that lack of trust for mutuality, we do not have a regional approach to resource management policies. And I'll give you a few examples. Let's take the solar battery, photovoltaic battery. 85% of a battery is aluminium. 85%. The other components may be cobalt, silver, etc., etc. Now, if you come to the west coast of Africa, Guinea, Ghana, abundant in bauxite, and so could be a region for aluminium production. And every single photovoltaic cell in the world is 85% aluminium. It's a no-brainer. That is where we should be, because that's where the value chain is. If you look at cobalt, 70% of the cobalt in the world is from the DRC. And so there again, it's a no-brainer. Almost 100% of a solar battery or a photovoltaic cell can be manufactured in Africa. Indeed, I get from the AFCFTA, from research done, that the production of a battery in Africa is much cheaper than you'd find in China. And yet we export all our components to China. Look at lithium. Lithium is in abundance on the continent. Almost the whole of West Africa is, in a foundation of lithium. Now, we need to make use now, because if we don't, in the next 4 years, the price of lithium is going to drop, and we are not going to benefit from it. But it will not drop if we utilize it ourselves to produce these photovoltaic cells. And when you look at the continent, we are resource rich. So why don't we have a regional approach to resource management policies where we share for mutuality? And I cracked a joke to somebody yesterday when we were talking about local content. And I said, isn't it strange that Africa is resource rich, yet we do local content policies? Why don't we have foreign content policies instead? The resources are ours, and yet we are thinking of local content. We should be talking of foreign content. But that cannot happen without local empowerment. And so the view that we need to empower our private sector is without question. That you're already empowered. It's without question. And we should reorient our policies towards empowering our private sectors, because the public sector technically creates the environment and the private sector enacts. And for most private sector companies, especially the serious ones, give them the opportunity. They'll find the money, they'll find how to utilize the opportunity and produce. So those are some of the things that we need to, accept. And that is what comes out on the, the tyranny of sovereignty. We box ourselves into over-regulatory, situations to the benefit of outside the continent, when all the power is here. So that is one. And on the issue of sustainability and green industrialization, without doubt, once again, Africa is more resourced for energy transition than any other continent. I mean, if you look at solar radiation on the continent, it's about 4 or 5 times what you find even in other states where there's abundant sunshine. And we have the minerals to support it. So we should take advantage of that. And if you think that we are going to industrialize, then we also must be thinking of how we would facilitate green finance, because the more industries we create here, the more the chances we are also going to increase our, our carbon footprint. Today, Africa produces less than 3% of global emissions. But if we are to activate AFCFTA, we need at least 2 million trucks to haul across the continent. That is more emissions. So we need the technology, and that is why the importance of investing in education and life skills should not be underestimated. Many countries that in the past 30 decades elevated themselves was through education and research. So we need to understand that. And then, of course, the biggest dividend that the continent has is the youth bracket. Today, we are 1.4 billion people, of which 60% is under the age of 35. By 2050, we will be 2.6 billion, 1/4 of the world's population. But that demography will still be there. That is a consumer market waiting to happen. That is also potentially the world's largest cadre of human capital to drive change in the world. So I have always said that today, what is an African problem is actually a solution for the global problem of global economic growth. What we've done at GIPC on the green finance is actually we've initiated what we call the Responsible Sustainable Investor, which we are promoting. And very soon, Mr. President will bring the document to you, where we will no more just give blanket incentives for foreign direct investors, but we'll apply those incentives to investors who enable us achieve the SDGs according to our national plan. And accordingly, I'm also championing the cause of integrating the African investment promotion agencies to one association, so we can speak with the same voice in the same way and optimize our opportunities along regional lines.
And there you have it, highlights of the Africa Prosperity Dialogue. News and events comes up shortly after this break. Don't go away.
Ohima, don't be me taking number first.
But you didn't tell you say take the number give me.
Guys, now I'm tired. I'll go on a date with whoever gets here first.
Princess, really?
Okay, I come.
Shut up!
Mame, fill me tank now, Martin.
Boss, fill my tank with Super XP Ron 95.
Fuel up with Super XP Ron 95 and Diesel XP high performance products from Goyle.
Sorry, Tony got hit first, so I'm stepping with him.
Oh, cut him.
Hey, go for mami.
Choose Super XP Ron 95 and Diesel XP for an energizing driving experience. Always go for Goyle Super XP Ron 95. Goyle, good energy.
Goyle is good energy.
Are you an importer or exporter? Do you need quick financing at the best rate on the market? ADB has good news for you. Walk into any agricultural development bank location nationwide for that solution to all your trade financing needs. ADB offers you pre-financing of exports and imports, post-shipment credit facilities, bank guarantees, the issuance and acceptance of letters of credit, documentary bills for collection, outward documentary collection. Enjoy free advisory services from our well-trained, dedicated trade officers. Exporters of agricultural products are encouraged to take advantage of this great service. For further enquiries, call us on 0302 210 210. ADB, making trade finance easy. ADB, Truly Agric, and more.
And it's a wrap for this week's edition of International Trade Focus. We believe that you enjoyed every bit of the highlights from the Africa Prosperity Dialogues. International Trade Focus is brought to you by Gol Good Energy, ADB, Truly Agric, and more, Public Elegance, and Pediassi Valley Resort. My name is Anna Spio. Join us same time next week. Bye-bye.